from this season, I picked Ao no Hako or Blue Box because I think, and I think I wrote it here in my notes. I think it's a fun mix of romance and sports, and I think with pretty good animation, and it has a reminiscence to a lot of like not older shows, but older shows than this, right? So like Kimi no Todoke, Chiayafaru, Toradora, it hits those levels of shows pretty well from the few episodes I watched for the impression. It gives me that thing that I think a new person could watch it, and I think it's not it feels relatable enough, not too anime-y, and it feels just the right level of okay, if you want to get into like a romance type anime, this feels like fairly representative of a lot of other romance type animes. And I know that if you enjoyed this, there's at least a dozen shows I could recommend to you after that as well. So a lot of these shows I picked from these seasons are if you enjoyed this, I could recommend to you at least at minimum 5 shows. I mean, I'd have to look through my list a little bit for sure, but I could recommend at least 5 other shows if you enjoyed any of these for sure. And so that was my, and this is from this year. So a lot of these are on a streaming service. Most of them are on Crunchyroll, if anything, right? Uh,
Yeah, most everything's on Crunchyroll or Netflix.
so most of these are on a streaming service, and I think how Crunchyroll works is you can still watch them for free-ish with an account with a free account with ads or something maybe I don't know, because it's of the current year and they're still available to watch without like a super premium tier if you needed to as well. So I think that's why I picked those for my entry level animes. So when I look at entry level anime, I really look at it like it's like your starter job, right? Like it's the job you get. You're not going to be here for that long because you're planning to move up or move up somewhere else. So I just needed to get my foot in the door, and now my foot's in the door. What do I do? So and so these also are a lot of shows that are pretty like when I say generic, I don't mean that in a bad way, but these are very generic representatives of somewhat of their genres that they're in, and they're decent ones at that. So if I know you didn't like particular aspects of solo leveling, well, there's these other types of shows that you might like. Did you not like this particular part of Kaiju number 8? Well, okay, so these are the kinds of shows you might like instead. And obviously I'm missing a whole bunch of genres, but I did get some of that stuff for you afterwards in my next section. So, to break up my conversational nature, Mitz, what did you have?
I mean, like I said, I think that this selection depends on what kind of person you're talking to. But I think there are certain things with anime that make it easier for people to watch and get into. And the first of those is I don't want a recommendation I make to be overly anime. I don't want it to be too
Agreed.
difficult of a leap.
Not too many panty shots and boob grabs and oops, I fell into your breasts.
Yeah, and I don't want to have like heterochromia everywhere. I don't want people to have fucking star eyes like they did in Oshinoko. Like the average person, your average coworker in the office is going to pick that up and be like, "What the fuck am I watching?" And it's going to be jarring. Like having someone's eyes have giant stars in them is jarring for me. And I feel like I've seen as much, if not more, weird shit than just about anybody in anime as far as designs go. So, and you don't want them to be overly silly.
Yeah, it's definitely a very aesthetic choice to have in a show. Whereas, like, even in Western shows, it's kind of hard to get somebody into, like, a period piece or something like that because it is so stylized and there's a certain aesthetic to go along with it. Oshino? Oh, my God, I can't.
Oshinoko.
Yeah, I'm not going to fucking try to say that again.
She didn't say Chiorzo again.
I don't know what's wrong with me right now. I lost my thought.
That's okay. So... And that goes for character designs as well as the content of the anime. I mean, there are a lot of shows out there that are just a little too off the wall for people to really just jump into right away. I wouldn't be recommending like Azumanga Daioh to somebody. Like it's just too off the wall. It's too bizarre for people to really enjoy immediately. I think that there are other shows like I wouldn't be showing people overly aggressive content. Like I wouldn't pick Perfect Blue out of a hat and send it to somebody. I wouldn't be picking Now and Then.
I would.
Well, they're going to be like, oh, I don't like watching girls get raped on stage. Sorry, graped. Can't say anything because the world's so, like, can't, whatever. It's too late. But there are a lot of shows out there that I think are good, and I think you have to have a very easy to understand narrative that's also very strong. So people that are used to watching stuff like Western live action content are going to need. It'd be better if you were to give them a show that is essentially a live action show that is just done in an animation form. So here's a great example. Planet Test is a great example of this. Because Planet Test is essentially about people out in space picking up garbage. It's not a particularly hard show to understand the concept of. And they have a very great opening scene where like a screw or whatever hits a space shuttle and it kills everybody. And like you can understand that like in the future, just like with our oceans, if humans are traversing space, we're likely to be filling it with a bunch of crap also. And we all know that the risks of asteroids and all this other stuff that exist in outer space. So that's an easy concept to understand. And plus, people really enjoy outer space in general. I personally have been super like into outer space lately. I've been watching all these YouTube videos about what would happen if like Jupiter collided with the Earth or all this other crazy shit, or what is a black hole. Yeah, they're fucking great. So outer space is so interesting and so big. So I don't think that really is hard for people to get behind. But there's other shows too, and this one's also related to outer space. I don't know, this just kind of happened by coincidence. But it has a down-to-earth, easy to understand story. And that would be a show that I've talked about a lot, and that's Space Brothers. Brothers.
I'm like, Space Brothers. It has to be Space Brothers you're saying next.
I mean, it's a show about a guy that just wants to be an astronaut. Like, who hasn't wanted to be an astronaut at some point in their life? Like, everybody thought about it one time. And it has an extremely sharp and very well-paced narrative that isn't going to leave people bored. You don't want your newbie to be bored. You don't want them to be like, what the fuck am I watching? You know, and Space Brothers is extremely normal looking. It's set in our real world with real world rules. It's got a very tight and very dramatic narrative that's super interesting. I mean, I showed you a few episodes of it, Pancake, and it's
fun.
It's a great anime. I know people that have watched anime that didn't even know it was fucking anime, and they watched Vinland Saga, and they were like...
Vinland Saga is a strong one.
They were like, I watched this show, and it was like... I don't even know what I was watching, but it had Vikings in it, and it was animated, and I was like, oh, that's probably Vinland Saga. And they were like, oh, yeah, that is what it was called. And they didn't even know it was fucking anime. But guess what? Vinland Saga, again, grounded in what could easily just be a real-world TV show. Lots of action and great pacing. There's a lot of drama, like Thor's self-sacrifices, like episode 4 or something. Like, the show is just, anybody can friggin' watch Vinland Saga. If you can handle the violence, you know, that eventually comes, anybody's going to be able to watch that. Anybody's going to be able to watch Space Brothers and enjoy it because it's just a well-told story. And I think that's really what's important because everybody, no matter who you are, wants the well-told story. So, Vinland Saga is so freaking good. I can't wait to see where that shit goes. I mean, it reinvents itself in season 2 and is arguably even better. I mean, the writing is so insane. Oh, my God. I'm just going through my list here. I mean, obviously, like, there's lots of movies that people could watch. Like, the Ghibli movies are quite honestly, like, timeless. They're timeless for a reason. You know, if you're into sports, there's a lot of good sports. All the sports anime are pretty much grounded. Like, you can just about watch any of them. I recommended Redline to a guy not long ago, and he thought it was fucking awesome.
Redline is awesome.
It's a little, like, out there. I mean, not everybody will like Redline probably because it's like, oh, I don't like the music, or I don't like racing, or I think that the aliens are weird to look at. Like, I get that. I probably wouldn't really put that on this list, but yeah,
I think it's one of those things that if you're like if you're into like video games even, or passively even into anime, I think Redline's one of those. Well, you want to watch an anime, but you're like really into video games. I would say, yeah, watch Redline. I think you'll like really like that movie.
And lastly, and this goes with my first point, I wouldn't necessarily show somebody that's something that's overly stylized. Not just the designs of like their hair or whatever, but I'm looking at Ping Pong, the animation here. Ping Pong, the animation, is a great anime. Yes. It's nobody who watches it is going to say Ping Pong is a bad anime, but it looks a little weird compared to other shows. So I wouldn't pick that one out of a hat either to show it to people. I wouldn't pick Gonkutsuo out of a hat and show that to anybody. I mean, it's just the way that it's drawn is just a little... the fabric still images or whatever they refer to that as in that show is just a little too much, a little too weird. Or like you're not going to show someone Flowers of Evil. Like that show is just way too fucking rotoscoped. So I don't know. I'm kind of copping out by not giving a lot of examples, but
no, you've given a few good examples. No worries. Don't worry. I'll bring us home with mine, and you won't feel as bad after what I say next. So
that's how it usually happens.
I'll put it this way. Okay, so I'm the guru of Gundam of the podcast, self-proclaimed. Yes. I guess I said that in a wrong order. So I'm going to recommend a couple of Gundam shows. So there's Gundam Wing and 08th MS Team, which all came out in the 90s. These are the 08th MS Team's an OVA. It's a good introduction to Gundam. It's grounded, it's realistic, at least for the first part, and it's really fun, and it's some really good character development. Gundam Wing, it was my first Gundam, so I'm just gonna always have a bias for it, and I'm like, if you like robots, if you like melodrama, if you like, I'm currently rewatching it with BCom, friend of the podcast. I guess I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Sure.
So we've been rewatching it. I've been rewatching it, and he's been watching it. We've been watching it for the last 3 years. Every time I go to New York to visit him, we watch a couple of episodes.
It's not that long. What is it? 50 episodes?
Yeah. Well, when you're only watching like maybe we're halfway through.
I guess that's true. I guess if you don't go that often.
I only go once a year to New York. Maybe in March because of a concert, but we'll see. Anyway, but another good entry points into Gundam I found was Gundam 00 and Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. These are really they are not the normal Gundam shows, but they are very Gundam at the same time. And I feel like they're more like, so Gundam 00 has a more political spin to it from the get-go with some fantastical nature. What if like a terrorist group came in and basically forced the world to unite in some weird way? And that makes for an interesting Gundam story. And then Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans follows a bunch of basically slaves who rise up to go beyond their slavery. And that's always just like an inspiring story as well. And these are and they're sort of done by the same team. And these are, I think, really like interesting entry points into Gundam while still being very Gundam as it goes along. But these are the kinds of shows where like the action is pretty on point, or they bring some central plot point that makes you kind of want to continue the show. And if you enjoy these, then you can also buy into some of the ridiculousness that is other Gundam shows as well. As for movie recommendations, I just put 2 here. I biasly chose Princess Mononoke because that's my favorite Ghibli movie.
That's a strong one. I think a lot of people like Princess Mononoke, even if they don't like anime.
Nausicaa. For me.
Yeah, fair. But I also feel like it's the more adult of the Ghibli movies, and I think that's where you can recommend it to somebody. I would never recommend My Neighbor Totoro to somebody. Just for them to watch as an adult. I would never recommend My Neighbor Totoro to an adult to watch as an entry level anime.
Ashitaka is very good at decapitating people with arrows. I don't know. Or like taking your limbs off. He is exceptionally good with a blade that's probably only like an inch wide. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so my last one, because I said I chose one from the year I was born, but I lied. I couldn't find one because I hadn't seen any of those.
I found one from my year. You could recommend Rurouni Kenshin.
Oh my God, you were born in '96.
Yeah.
Like everything on friggin' Earth came out in '96.
I cannot recommend that one in good conscience, unfortunately, for reasons I think we all are aware of. Maybe.
Oh yeah, he's fucking creep. Still a good story though.
So I said one for the family, the whole family. I said Pokemon, and this one's actually easy to get because I think they're taking them off of Netflix, but they're putting them on YouTube on the official Pokemon channels. Like they're putting up the old episodes. I think you can even watch a lot of the current ones. And I think Pokemon's still a fun story. Like I may not watch it, but I do like watching the odd things that show up on my TikTok every now and then. I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun. That looked like a fun battle. I don't want to watch the whole thing, but I think, if you have a kid, show them some Pokemon. I think it might be pretty cool.
Another good one for the whole family would be like Kiki's Delivery Service or Totoro. Like I know you said you couldn't recommend it to an adult person, but for the family, I think Totoro's great, and so is Kiki.
Yeah.
How about Sonic Boom? What do you think about that?
I don't think it's anime.
It's not anime.
It's not. How about Cheese Sweet Home?
That's to set your like 4-year-old in front of the TV
What
to
do you
learn
think
Japanese.
fucking Pokemon is? It's for 4-year-olds.
No, there's more.
No, there's more stuff happening. Like,
oh, come now, my lady.
Cheese Sweet Home is very.
It's a Coco Melon of. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
no, it's
you
not.
take that
It's not
back.
nearly as stimulating.
I do.
It's very slow, very like learning based. I feel like, as opposed to Pokemon.
Yeah.
Okay, if you say so. I didn't know you were such a Cheese Sweet Home aficionado. Do you
Cute cat. Why not?
do you have all the books?
Oh, every single one of
You
them.
don't have any of the books. You don't know shit. Get out of here with that crap. Just kidding. Not really. Anyway, what else you
Well,
got?